What's up, everybody? It is Mark from Ichiban Games, and we are ready for the sixth installment of the cards for Alakazam in the wonderful set known as the Grand Arcanum. Before we get into it, we must once again do that disclaimer, which this video is made for teaching purposes only, and in the future will be updated. This game is in its alpha stage, and all information may be subject to change. So, all the art you see is proxy and used as placeholder. Some art you see in the video I own the rights to, and others I do not. But do know all the art credit does go to all the artists. Remember that all the art is placeholder and for teaching purposes only. So, okay, let's do this. All right, so the first card that we're going to go over here on this video is Lord of Nightfall, which is a common card that is a creature, undead, vampire of the dark faction. It is a 3 attack, 4 defense, 0 special defense, and it has a casting cost of using 2 gold and 1 arcane tome. And it does the following. It has Drain and it has Preemptive. When this card enters the battlefield, create 1 runestone or onyx for every 2 creatures in a target opponent's graveyard. Ability, Spell Speed. Spend 3 runestones to permanently give a target creature Drain and make them a vampire until they are removed from the field. So, this interesting card here makes a creature be a vampire by association. So that's cool. And it gives it Drain. So that is a very interesting thing of how this card acts. But it definitely also helps you do some things for fueling things. And it has Drain and Preemptive itself. So this is just a really strong common card in general. Very, very good card. The next card is a common card called Lunar Pendant, which is an equipment relic accessory that is iron and magic. This card has a cost of spending 2 glyphs, and you get a special defense boost of 1, and then its equip cost is 2. So, this card gives an extra +1 attack, +1 defense, and +2 special defense to any wolf creature. When a card equipped with this card does combat damage, this card gets a power counter. When equipped, it loses all power counters. Magic ability, Instant Speed. When equipped, spend 2 power counters off this card to give a target wolf creature +3 attack and preemptive until the end of turn. Morph ability. Spend 2 power counters to morph the equipped creature into a ravenous werewolf. Well, that is quite nice. Once you go and you get this thing, and it is a ravenous werewolf, you can make its other magic ability be prevalent, and that just is pretty cool. So you can just start turning things into werewolves if you really want. And we'll go over more what the ravenous werewolf does in general soon, but this is quite a nice little card. It also just, if it's a wolf creature in general, just gives it an extra attack, defense, and special defense on top of that special defense it already has. So that is quite good for making something not die from magic damage if it is that wolf creature. So next, we have Loot of Roving, which is an uncommon card that is an item, relic, instrument, loot, and it is also magical. And it has a casting cost of using a treasure trove or an arcane tome. This card enters with 2 power counters on it. Link ability, Spell Speed, link a creature and this card, then turn them to put 1 power counter on this card. Put 2 on it if that creature is a musician or bard. Link magic ability, Instant Speed. Link a creature to this card, then turn and sacrifice 3 power counters off this card. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck, put one into your hand, and the rest on the bottom in any order. If a musician or bard was linked, shuffle in an item, equipment, or enchantment from your graveyard first. Okay, that's pretty good. Like, if you can get an equipment or an enchantment or item back in, your deck, that's good as well because, you can always have something to play with, but just being able to check of what kind of cards you would like to have in general, that is quite good. So, this is a very strong thing, and if it's got some synergy with a musician or a bard, which the bard we already have seen will help in this. This is definitely going to be pretty good for getting through your deck to certain cards you want. The next card we have is a common card called Lycanthrope Soldier, which is a creature human warrior that has an attack of 1, defense of 3. It has a casting cost of use 2 glyphs, and it does this. At your first upkeep, Lycanthrope Soldier gets 1 power counter, both in regular and morph form. Physical morph ability. Spell speed. Spend 2 power counters to morph this card into Ravenous Werewolf. Then it may fight a target creature. Morph ability. Turn and remove the Ravenous Werewolf to morph back into Lycanthrope Soldier. So this card right here, you can do different things depending on how you wanted to do it. It's mainly morph unmorph sort of strategy with that, which that way you can just fight things. So it's a good small fighting tactic for that, but the Ravenous Werewolf itself is very good. So depending on how you want to do this, it just upgrades and then upgrades again and upgrades again and whatever. So, but yeah, good and unique little card here. The next card we have is Magic Spring, which is a common card that is a land enchantment. It's of the Magic faction and the Water faction, which its casting cost is spend 2 gold and 2 glyphs. Attach Magic Spring to your field. When any player casts an incantation of any kind, you create 1 sapphire or 2 life points. And if it flicked a card, create 2 sapphire or gain 4 life points. When a creature visits this land, if it has a curse on it, at your second upkeep, the curse will advance. If the curse reaches its endpoint, it goes away and has no effect on the creature. Okay, this card is pretty interesting where if you have an opponent that is whipping spells all over, you can gain some life and you can get some things. You get that sapphire, which that'll help too. It's definitely helpful as well if there's any curses on creatures where they can get them off. But if the land was destroyed, those curses stay on and then, it would do whatever it would do to the creature from that curse. So pretty good card though. It's definitely something because it's any player. It could be your opponent or you or whatever. So depending on how you play with this, you can do some pretty good things with this card. Its casting costs a little hefty, but either way, that's not bad. Next, we have Magma Knight, which is a common creature dwarf knight fire faction. And the attack is 3, the defense is 3, and special defense is 0. And the casting cost is you use 3 gold. It has Pierce, it is resistant to the Earth faction, and when this card attacks, create 1 ruby. So, okay, this is a good card for just attacking through, and you get them rubies, so that's good. And it's resistant to the Earth faction, so Something like Earth Roll is not going to kill this, which is good. And it also pierces. So that's a nice card right there. Next, we have Malicious Pillager, which is a common card that is a creature human berserker, which is an attack of 2, defense of 1, and special defense of 0. And it has a casting cost of 2 glyphs used. It has anti-targeting, and its ability, its spell speed is turn 2 arcane tomes to make a target opponent discard 4 cards from their hand and 1 card from the top of their deck. If the opponent does not have cards in hand, the rest comes off their deck. Oh, dirty. Dirty, dirty, dirty card right there. Yeah, that's very strong to go and really hurt some opponents and definitely give some card drought. Oh, and look at that flavor text. A little bit of lore in there. Without warning, the invaders arose from the black fog, bringing forth siege, conquest, and onslaught. All right. Next card, we have Mecha Spider, which is a creature, relic, construct, alchemist spider. And it has an attack of star, a defense of 4, and a special defense of 0, with a casting cost of 2 glyphs and 1 treasure trove. This card is an uncommon card. This card enters the field with 6 limb counters on it, which is also its attack. This card cannot have more than 6 limbs. Limbs can be sacrificed as gold or glyphs. If you do, subtract 1 limb counter. If a casting that targets this card has a plus attack effect, gain 1 limb counter, and if it gains a plus 1 attack counter, you can put that counter as a limb counter instead. When a limb counter is gained, it cannot be sacrificed until your next turn. When this card dies, create 1 scrap. Ability, spell speed. Sacrifice a limb counter as gold or glyph. This can only be used for casting cards in your hand. Okay, so that was a bunch of stuff. This is insane how this card works. So when it comes out on the field, it's got 6 attack, which is also its limbs. You can go and sacrifice these limbs off for just casting things. Now, it doesn't cast them at instant speed, but yeah, it works for just cards in your hand as well. And that's a thing. So it is limited to that, but you can definitely do stuff where you cast these cards out, and that's that. So now if you do put a counter on it, that would give it that plus 1 attack, you have to either choose an attack plus 1 or it would be a limb counter. So that's how that does work. And if you were to do something like buff it up, like say a card like Berserker's Rage, it would make it be able to get a plus 1 on it so you could go and get that limb counter back. But remember, you can't use a limb counter that was just gotten. So this card is definitely strong, though. And it creates a scrap. So we'll get into that more later, too. The next card is a common card that's a big old bear snake. It's a Megalosica, which is a creature, beast, snake bear, which is a attack of 5, defense of 4, and special defense of 0. It has a casting cost of use 2 glyphs and 1 treasure trove, and it has fatal and pierce. Yeah, this is definitely a big, bad, mean card. That's awesome. Kill things and punch your opponent right in the face. Next is the card Mimic Shield, which is an uncommon equipment shield magical faction with an extra type of creature mimic. Okay, so its casting cost is spend 3 gold or 3 glyphs and equip 1. Its stats are 2 attack, 2 defense, and 0 special defense. So, what does this do? Functions as an equipment, not a creature. Can receive benefits and hindrances of a creature. Can only be destroyed as an equipment would be destroyed. Eat ability, instant speed. In combat, before damage is dealt, including preemptive damage, if this card blocks or is blocked by an opponent attacking or blocking creature, it eats 1 equipment from the opponent creature, then gains a +1 defense counter. If this card is destroyed, all eaten equipment goes to their owner's graveyard. Well, that's wild because this thing eats equipment prior to preemptive. So this thing will just take out stuff. So it's like pre-preemptive of how its ability works. But after it's done, the preemptive will go off and there's that. So this is very, very, very destructive. And the fact that at least it's only 1 equipment per time, but even still, this thing gets bigger, and there's that. Now, it can be hindered where certain things can happen to it. It can't be destroyed by any magic that would kill it, per se, but it would be destroyed if it was from equipment destruction or something that says would destroy any cards. So, like Fist of the Gods could take this thing out. So there's that. It's still a shield, and it won't break because it's an equipment as if it were a creature would. But it has creature properties. So you can do certain things like plus and minus it. But yeah, that's interesting. It's an interesting card the way that this thing works. Anyways, off to the next card. And that card is Minion of the Mist. It is an uncommon card that is a creature demon elemental with an air faction. It is a attack of 3, defensive 2, and special defense of 0. It has a casting cost of using 2 gold and 2 glyphs, and has stoneproof, poison with 1 unit, and empowerment by hiding and magic consistent. Hide ability, when this card emerges and damages a player, it inflicts 2 extra poison units to that player. So, yeah, this thing can't be turned to stone. It hits you and gives you poison, and it can hide if it really wants to avoid any kind of spells whacking it, and also it has magical, so it could just go through if it really wanted to anyway. And if it emerges from it hiding, it is going to poison you even more. So technically, this thing does 3 damage, but in the end, it's going to end up basically doing 5 and more, if that is the case, by the time it hits your turn. So this is a really dirty, dirty card right here. This next card is a common card that's an instant called Mirages of Demise. It has a casting cost of 1 treasure trove used, and it does this. Play this card on an attacking opponent creature, or if you, the player, or creature you control is the target of a cast card or an ability, then create 3 image tokens and 1 emblem token. Shuffle those tokens, then lay them in a line face down. That opponent chooses 1 card to reveal it. If the opponent picks an emblem, Their cards casting or damage to you happens as per normal. If they choose an image, banish that opponent's card or the activated or triggered ability. Reveal the other cards and sacrifice each of the tokens. Does not trigger any effects. Okay, so what happens is we got a nice little meta game going on here. And so if a creature tries to attack you, or you get a spell cast on you or cast on a creature, or say if it's an ability cast on a creature, or you can just play this card, and the nice little metagame of Mirages of Demise happens, where you'll get those 3 image tokens and the emblem token. You'll shuffle them up, lay them face down, and that opponent needs to go and pick that card. So if they pick that emblem, that represents you or the creature that it was cast upon, and things will happen as per normal. And if it was to be the image token, then you get to go and banish the card that is attacking you or the card that is cast from their hand. If it is an ability or triggered ability, it banishes the ability. It doesn't banish the card that did the ability. It just banishes the ability. So basically it negates it is really what happens. But either way, this is a good way to do some removal, and it's a nice little fun chancy spell, and it won't really knock anything out of you if it is being a treasure trove being used. So it's not so bad, but take your chances, and it's fun little metagame there. Next is the common card Mirror of Conveying, which is an item relic mirror magical with the casting cost of 3 gold and 3 glyphs spent, or use 1 treasure trove and arcane tome and 3 cards in your hand. So this thing does this. At your second upkeep, Mirror of Conveying gets 1 power counter on it. Ability, instant speed. Turn to put 1 power counter on any card you wish. Magic ability, spell speed. Spend 4 power counters that are on this card to take a target card from your graveyard and put it back to your hand. So this is a very cool card that can help beef up other cards that use power counters. And that's quite interesting. This card itself, though, can bring things back from the graveyard. So very useful for sure. Next, we have Molten Guardian, which is a common card that is a creature, elf, warrior of the Fire faction. And it is an attack of 3 and defense of 1, special defense of 0. And it is a casting cost of 2 gold and 3 glyphs all used. So, what Mr. Fire Elf here does is, when this card enters the battlefield, for every non-creature card that resides in your graveyard, put a +1 defense counter on it, as well as any time you cast a non-creature card or do a non-trigger creature ability. Alchemic ability, spell speed. Remove 1 permanent +1 counter from this card to do damage to any target. This card is insanely good for players that are going to be playing stuff that's not just creature-based decks and have anything. It could be items, enchantments, it could be any kind of incantation card, whatever. This is extremely, extremely good. And its ability is an alchemic ability, so anything that has spell proof, it can still target, but not the anti-targeting stuff. Either way, this is really good, where you just get a lot of defense points on this of +1 counters, and you minus them off, because it will just ping by 1 each. Any target. That could be a player, that could be creatures, that could be whatever. So this thing can get really nasty really fast. So, yeah, there's that. I mean, it can definitely die, but yeah, there's that. I mean, at least it's spell speed, so it can contend with something, but definitely, this card is going to be a menace. Next, we have Monk of Gale Force, which is a common card that is a creature human monk of the air faction, and it is an attack of 2, defense of 3, and special defense of 0. It has a casting cost of 2 gold and 3 glyphs, and it has a contain magic ability, spell speed, limit of 3. So, spend 2 glyphs and turn Monk of Gale Force to contain a target creature on the field or card from a target opponent's hand. If Monk of Gale Force is removed or you release one of the contained contents, you can have it go back to that player's field or hand. Oh, that's nice. So, this card, you can go and swift cards out of some player's hand there and then swoop them up off the field as well. And if you want to go and shoot them back to a player's hand, they can do that too, or they're just going to have to go and cast that all over again. So this does have some benefit where you might want to shoot it back to a player's hand depending on what that card is or whatever. So this is definitely good, and contain itself is super good. So this is going to be a wonderful card. The next card is a common card that is called Monster Hunter's Guild, which is an enchantment card, and it has a casting cost of 1 gold and 1 glyph spent, plus using 1 treasure trove and 1 arcane tome. Attach this card to your field, you get 1 gold or glyph for every creature you kill on your turn. Oh, that's great. So if you can go and kill some stuff on your turn, you're going to get some gold and glyphs. So that's fantastic. Next up, a common card called Mythic Shuriken, which is an equipment weapon made of iron. It has a casting cost of where you spend 1 gold and 1 glyph, and it has an equipment cost of 2. Physical ability, instant speed. Turn creature equipped with this card to throw it at a target creature or player for 1 damage, and 2 damage if your creature is hidden, the creature does not emerge. The creature is no longer equipped when thrown. Add 1 extra damage for every 3 attack power the equipped creature has. Alright, so this, you could just pick it up and throw it and do some damage if need be. This is actually a really good card. It just depends how many times you can equip it. So, yeah, excellent. Excellent card right here. Next we have Mithril Dragon, which is an uncommon card that is a creature dragon of the Earth faction with an attack of 4, defense of 3, and special defense of 0, and a casting cost of using 5 gold. It has Juggernaut. It is resistant to damage 2 or lower. When Mithril Dragon turns or dies, create 1 runestone. Ability, spell speed, sacrifice 2 runestone, then put 1 counter on up to 2 different stats of Mithril Dragon. Fusion, fuse with 2 or more dragon creatures to have them become a Draconic Hydra. This card is just bonkers. Not only does it go and give you stuff every time it turns or even if it dies, and it has Juggernaut of 2, so you're going to have 2 things at least block it. It's resistant to anything that is 2 attack or lower, or any damage that's 2 or lower. So if you have to hit it with something 3 or higher, it's just it won't be hurt. So this is a strong card right here, and it can also turn into a Hydra if you want. But yeah, that's super good. Next, we have Noxious Skin Flare, which is a rare card that is a creature undead human zombie with an attack of 3, defense of 3, and special defense of 3. It has a casting cost of 4, and here's what it does. It has dual hit, sentinel, poisonous of 2 units, cannot be stunned. Alchemic ability. When this card dies, poison all opponent players by 1 unit. Alchemic ability. When this card attacks, target opponent creature gets -2 attack until end of turn. My oh my, the skin will fly with this creature. Not only is it got a defense of 3, it's special defense of 3. So that's definitely helping, but in reality, this thing hits for 6 is really what's going on here. With that dual hit, it's going to first hit for 3, and then it's going to hit for 3 again. So preemptive than normal. It doesn't turn, and it doesn't just poison for 2 units. That's only if it hits you once. It'll do that. It'll hit for twice, and that's going to give you 4 poison. So this is very, very, very poisonous and very, very, very badass is what's happening here. So this also can't be stunned, and also if it dies, if you're in a multiplayer match, it's going to poison all the other opponents by 1. So yeah, and if it attacks, it's going to make something of a lower attack power anyway. So this card is really, really, really good. Next, we have Opal Oyster, which is a common card that is a creature, shellfish, oyster, water faction. It's got an attack of 1 and a defense of 2. It has a casting cost of 1 gold to use, and at the beginning of each player's upkeep, Opal Oyster gets a power counter on it. Ability, instant speed. Spend 3 power counters from Opal Oyster to create 1 pearl. So this is a nice little generator of pearls right here. And if you remember what the pearls do, they make fishies and other kinds of little watery creatures. So yeah, definitely helpful for getting more little token creatures on the board. We have is a common card called Orb of Oracle, which is an item relic orb magical. It has a casting cost of spend 1 gold and 1 glyph. Magic ability, spell speed. Turn this card to peek at the top 3 cards of an opponent's deck. You may spend 1 gold or glyph to unturn this card. Magic ability, spell speed. Turn Orb of Oracle. All opponents put the top card of their deck to the bottom. Magic ability, spell speed. Sacrifice this card to search your deck for a card and put it on top of your deck. This is a good little versatile card here where you can just look at your opponent's cards and you can be like, nope, you ain't getting that. I don't want you having that, that kind of thing. And that's really, really good. This is especially good for having it in multiplayer free-for-all games. And also, it doesn't even matter what kind of game you're playing. If you can go and nab a card out of your deck by sacrificing this thing, that's just great. Next, we have Owl of Foresight, which is a common creature bird owl of the light faction, and it is magical. It has an attack of 3, a defense of 2, and special defense of 0. And its casting cost is use 3 glyphs. It's empowered by flight. It has anti-targeting in combat only, and magic ability, instant speed. When this card or an enchantment enters the field, peek at the top 3 cards of all target opponents' decks without them seeing, then put them back on top in any order. But if it was a blessing, you may put any of those cards on the bottom of their deck in any order. So, yeah, okay. This thing, if you have an enchantment that's a blessing that just comes out on the field, you can go and make sure that any players in the game just can't go and get their cards because you're swipping them back to the bottom of their deck. Oh my, okay. And it's good attack, that's for sure. So, wonderful. Also, it can't be targeted in combat. So, if there's an archer or something trying to attack this thing directly, it's not going to be able to do it through combat. So, that's a great card for sure. Next, we have Paladin of Radiance, which is a common card that is a creature human paladin knight that is of the light faction. It has an attack of 3, defense of 4, special defense of 0, and to bring it out, you have to use 3 gold. This card can block hidden and magical empowered creatures, and magic ability, instant speed, spend 2 gold to give this card the empowerment of flight until the end of turn. So this is a good card that can block every empowered creature. Just with flying, it needs to be able to do that by spending the gold to do it. But also, you can do it as offensive to make it fly to do certain things. So this can be very, very versatile and very good for players. Next up, we have Peekaboo, which is an instant card that is common, and you must spend any 2 resources of the same kind. So you need to spend either 2 gold or spend 2 glyphs, spend 2 treasure troves or spend 2 arcane tomes, or spend 2 cards in your hand or spend 2 life points. Either way, you need to spend it. So target opponent reveals their hand to you. Reveal all hidden cards on that opponent's field. And all opponent magical empowered creatures lose their empowerment until the end of turn. So you get to see what they got. You get to reveal all those hidden creatures. And if there's anything magically empowered on their field, you can be like, nope, that ain't going to go and happen. You're going back to non-spiritual form. So, yeah, that is very helpful. Finally, the last card that we're going over for this video is Persistent Zombie, which is an uncommon card that is a creature undead zombie for an attack of 1, a defense of 3, and special defense of 0. To cast it out, you use 1 gold and 1 glyph. If this card comes back from the graveyard, put a +1 attack and +1 defense on it called Grave Counters. When Persistent Zombie dies, it loses all other counters except for Grave Counters, which stay on it in the graveyard. Ability, Spell Speed. Spend either any 2 gold or glyph to put this card back to your sub-hand, as well as any graveyard counters it has. If this card has 3 or more grave counters, you may cast it from your graveyard to your field. All right, so this card, every time it comes out of the graveyard, it gets counters on it. And it just becomes a bigger zombie and bigger zombie and bigger zombie. So, and it utilizes the sub-hand so that way no player gets confused of when this card is out of the graveyard, and also to go and have those counters on it so it, you know, makes sense to have it in your hand. So that's that. Yeah, this card becomes a big, brutal idiot, and that is quite good. Thanks everybody for checking out this video. For more of the card database, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video, and also click that notification bell. Remember, you can check all the game rules and card database on our Google Drive, and you can play the game at untap.in, which is free to sign up, but we can also have it on Tabletop Simulator. If you join the Discord, you can meet others who will play with you. So make sure you do that and find the community so you can go and check in with all of those people that would love to play the game with you, and also other games that we make. So yeah, do that, and remember, you can also check the webpage for more goodies of Ichiban Games. Thanks again, and we will see you next video.